Good afternoon. Welcome to Usability testing. I'm just going to give you a few more minutes for more students to join in, and then we'll start the session today. Good afternoon. Welcome to those of you who have made the choice to be live in the session today. I really appreciate. The session is being recorded, so this is a block hour 2 and hour 3. So we're going to do hour 2 until 2:20 p.m. If we finish before, that's fine. Then hour 3 will be the lab as well part. So the session is being recorded for hour number 2. When and how you'd like to spend your hour 2 and 3 is really up to you. So you're welcome to be, and I'm glad to see that some of you are attending live. The session is being recorded. You can watch it at any time. We will finish the content from hour 1 from yesterday that we did not have a chance to finish. And then for our lab 3, hour 3 is our lab. So the intent is to work on the lab items for this week. The session is not going to be recorded for hour 3, and that will go from 2:25. Maybe we'll take a break in between. It's not going to be recorded. I will be online to meet with you, and I will be available on standby. So I will keep Collaborate open as well. I'll be here on my computer. I'm going to be working on a class. And if anybody wants to spend time with me or ask me questions, I will be here. So I'll be happy to do a chat. We can use the breakout session as well if need be. And then, but I will be around. The labs. So the labs, remember, this week we have labs. So if you go to the Blackboard and then you go to week 2, then you'll have the modules, you'll have the readings, you'll have the lecture, then you have the labs. So the labs, and I've added the note. I just realized that there was no note even for last week. So the labs have to be completed before our next sync block. So that our next block, hour 1 block, so that which is on Wednesday. So your lab should be completed, and then follow the instruction for submission. I don't necessarily always expect submission. Again, the labs are not being graded and marked, but the more you do the labs, the easier it will be, and your learning will be much better. It's not until we start doing things. And again, it's like usability testing, right? We want user in action using your product. This is where the real stuff happens. So it's when you do the labs that you really realize what you have understood and maybe where you have to spend more time. It's the same thing. It's easy to listen to me, but once you try to do it, this is where you find that you will maybe need to spend more time in certain areas. So it's not being marked. So it's for you to do, but here's what I do. Every week I pick a team. So I choose one of our team. We have 3, 4, or 5 teams. I pick a team randomly. I send you an email and I ask that you share with me your findings from the lab. So I did that. This week I've already picked a team. So you can rest if you haven't done the lab from last week. But if you haven't, then it's unfortunate. It's you. It's only for you. You're doing this for you. But remember, you're going to do usability testing. You're going to be real testing with in class, and I'll be a participant. So the more you do, the better you will feel. And then I've already picked a team this week. So I sent an email last night, I believe, and I said, hey team, I'd like to see what you've done for your lab. So thank you for those of you that have already submitted it. But it's not marked, there's no penalty. But when I ask you though to see the lab, then yes, I will be I do want to see what you have done. So there's no penalty, you're not going to lose points. But then usually what I see is a correlation between people that do labs and how you do in class. So you're doing this for you. It's not for me. You're doing this for you in real time, in real business. Those of you that succeed will do good usability testing. You'll bring good insight to your business. Your employer will be happy. You're not going to get a mark. You're either going to get bonuses or be paid, or that is the reality, right? So, but you don't get penalty for not submitting, but I will be just disappointed. But again, it will be for you. I reach out to a team, so thank you, and I will do the same next week. At our sync hour, after our sync hour, I will send an email to one of your team, and I will say, please share your findings. Now, sometime I may actually ask you to share someone individually, because some of the lab may have an individual part and components, but I will tell you, but everything in the labs are teams, or you can do individuals if you want, or in your team. But I will reach out, no matter if it's a team or if it's individual. The more you work, the better you will be at it. If you want to ask me a question at hour 3, I'll be here. At any point, you can reach out to me through the course. And then we're going to be watching a live demo of a think aloud technique as well, which is a very powerful technique. I've already mentioned it. And then I've put the reminder of what the assignment number 1 will be. But we'll get back to that as well. So as a refresh, but before I jump in, do we have any questions about yesterday, or any questions about the structure for today or the labs?
Hi, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So for the lab, where would be, I just missed it, where would we be submitting it?
You don't have to submit anything, but I will reach out to your teams for you to share with me what you have done for the lab. But for this week, for last week's lab, I've already reached out to a team. I said, hey team, please share with me your findings, what you've discussed in the lab. But really, the lab, you don't have to submit anything until you hear from me.
Okay, and then we would be presenting it to the class?
No, you don't present it to the class. You'll be sending me an email, and then by email, you're gonna send me what you've done, and in whichever format you choose, and then I will be able to give you feedback.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so what I do, how is this helpful, is that when I review what a team has done, and I see an opportunity to maybe bring more data, more insights, or give feedback, that if I think that there's value of sharing with the entire class, I will. And often that really is what happens. But the assignments you have no choice, right? Assignments need to be submitted, and I just need 1 submission by team. So I'll mention it now, but I only need to have 1 submission by team, but the assignments are all done by teams, obviously. Now, if you do the lab, if you choose to do the lab on your own, then my advice, and that is also mentioned, you should discuss with your teams what you found in your labs. You're hearing from other people, and here challenges that other people are encountering can also really help with your learning as well, or your coach. So in terms of triggers, we talk about many reasons why you may want to do usability testing. This is more refresh. Your data will tell you maybe there's something broken with your site. Maybe you're seeing that less people are actually converting or buying from you. Less people are actually making a payment. Less people maybe are paying their bill online. You don't know, but there's something that tells you that there's something maybe broken. Then you would do some investigation, and you may end up that maybe you need to do some usability testing to really understand what is happening. Maybe you've looked and there's no error messages. You don't see anything appearing that will tell you what is happening at that particular step in the journey. Then you would say, maybe it's time to do usability testing to find out more. Customer feedback, maybe they're telling you there's something, but then you don't really know what is that thing that is broken. but it's enough that you may want to do usability testing to really see users actually using your product. Maybe the business wants to make some changes and they want to change the experience, and then you're not 100% confident if it will be a good change or a bad change. Maybe you just want to understand how it's doing today so that you don't lose a good thing either. Maybe there's a previous research that tells you that there's something really, really broken with the experience, or maybe you've done the heuristic evaluation, just like you're doing in the lab, just like you're doing for this assignment, that will reveal that there are some areas that you feel that you need to spend more time with real people, looking at them using your tool to validate what you think is actually broken through your heuristic evaluation. And maybe you're going to find new challenges, or maybe you're going to find that the challenge that you thought that was maybe a high priority was not that much of a high priority or that much of a challenge. That is the only intent of assignment number 1, which we'll talk before when you go to block number 3. So what is usability testing? I think we may have touched on this, but there are really like 7 steps that you're going to need to go through. And all of our weeks are designed around the 7th step. So first of all, I'll be planning the test. So what you're doing now for assignment number 1, when you think of the heuristic evaluation, you're planning, you've picked a site, you've chose a site, and then you've chose a site for multiple reasons. Maybe you're just interested in that particular brand, that particular site. And each one of you is actually going through the site. You're going through your user goal. You're asking yourself, what is the user? Who is the user? So let's pick someone who's not a customer, who wants to be a customer. Then you're asking yourself, what would be the step they would follow? And that's some of their goals. And then you actually go to the site and you try to complete those goals. So doing that exercise will help you to plan the test. But there's a lot more to do in the planning, but that will be very, very soon one of our topics. Then we're going to talk about how do we recruit the participants, how do we prepare the materials, how do we set up the environment, how we conduct the tests. We're going to do real tests. You guys will do it yourself with your peers. And then the final assignment is to actually do it people that know nothing about the product and the website. And then it will be you will be looking for friends or colleagues to as participants, and you'll be the moderator, and then you'll be the observer as well. You're going to play the different roles. Building at the end of this module, you will know you'll be very, very comfortable about usability testing. Then we're going to look at data. How do we analyze data? And then how do we do a report? How do we do a report that is actually actionable? The days of the long reports are gone. So we're going to talk about what do we need in a report, and how long should the report be? And you should think of the assignment number 1. So we want a report that we can actually do something with, that we can actually know that there's something broken enough that we should either look for better solutions, or we think that there's maybe an obvious solution and we implement the solution. But you want your customer, you want your client to feel that they know what to do, and there's enough for them to understand where is their site having challenges for your users, to the screen, to maybe the drop down to the button, and to either provide even them a solution or no solution. But the goal of assignment number 1, we don't want a solution necessarily. We just wanted to know, where do we want to spend time? So our report can be lighter, and that's how it's been designed for the assignment number 1. But these are all the steps you're going to learn from, we're going to go through. And there's a link for you to learn more about this step. So don't worry about all the steps, but there are at least 7 that you should be aware of. We are in the planning stages. So our assignment number 1 is really designed to help us to do this. So we are thinking about, we have a site, you've picked a site, by now you should have a site and a website in mind. You should have done the lab 1 to help you really with assignment number 1. But you should definitely by now have a website that you know that you're going to be working with for the entire semester. So you're planning what you think is probably broken with the site. And I would say stick to that same website for the entire semester, so that you can do all the steps using the same business. And start with planning. And then at the end of assignment number 1, you'll know where are the areas that you want to focus your test on. So when we say conduct the test will be based on user goals. The test will be based on test scenarios. They will probably very much align with what you have come up in the heuristic evaluation. right? So this is why it's very important to do a good job right now in assignment number 1, because it will actually cascade that down. But we are in learning situation, so every step you're going to learn something. You're probably going to be making some changes to maybe some of the scenarios as you discover, but the goal is to pretty much stick to what you found in the heuristic evaluation. So we're going from assignment number 1. So I say this is assignment number 1 to, and then we're going to be validating in this area if what you thought was broken is actually broken. What else is broken that we don't know? And what is what we thought is broken that is not broken. That is really, really the intent. And that semester is all about this. And then we're going to learn about how do we do that. Why do we do usability testing? So there's multiple reasons. First of all, maybe we want to uncover more problems. You may choose not to do assignment number 1. Let's say if you're in business, you don't necessarily do assignment number 1, but you do know that there is something broken with the site because you see that your conversion is actually going down. You see that you're losing a lot of customer at a specific step. You may not necessarily do a big usability review, but you would definitely need to have a minimum sense of what am I going to be testing? What will be my user cases and my user scenarios? But you need to be open that there'll be more problems that you're going to find. Then you want also to discover new opportunities. What else I have missed? And you will learn so much about others. And the more you do usability testing, the more you spend time with users in front of a computer using technology and using a web, using a mobile, you will learn about problems or challenges that they may face in certain situations that you may actually take away and take and use in other setup, in other business, in other industries. So you're building knowledge. You're going to be building a repository of knowledge, user information, how users behave. You'll become so good, you'll be able to anticipate what you think might actually cause them issues because you will have seen it real life in testing. So if you have good memory, you're going to be storing a lot of data, a lot of research that will inform your design. If you're designing, some of you may also be in design. You may be designing experiences. This will help you. But then you're always going to need to be mindful that because you know so much about the user and because you know so much about the product, if you're designing, you still need to do user research because, and I think we've seen the video with Jacob Nilsson where he said, we cannot undo what we know in our brand. We're biased / we are already a bit contaminated. As much as we think that we're not, we just know the product and our business in a different way than our users. So very, very important, but you don't do one test, you will do a lot of research. Digital and website is never done. It's never complete. There's always room. There's an article linked to the article where I took this specific mention. Now, why do we do all of this? We want to improve business performance, business results, better consumer, happier consumer. So in the end, we want to get more sales. We want our people that are already coming to us to actually buy. Some people are coming to you, they want to buy, but they're not able. There are challenges, they're meeting challenges, and they end up leaving or they end up calling your call center, they're going to store, but you're losing some people to your competition because they're doing a better job. Right? So retention with better, happier customer who's able to use the service, who's actually able to renew the service on their own, who's happy, satisfied. The experience has a huge impact on your brand, on their experience overall. So I don't have a data, but if you've done usability and user experience design, and by now you probably heard one of the reasons why people leave is bad experience, not able to do their checkout. There's a little thing, but user experience usability has become a differentiator. And then it will reduce cost as well. So why cost? Well, every phone call costs money. We are very, very often thinking about buying, get customer to actually be able to buy your product online. But there's more than buying. There's also be able to do what they want and not have to call your staff. So why would you have 100 staff taking phone calls when most of the reason why people are calling are actually available online, but your customer is choosing not to do it? Multiple reasons. Maybe they're just not able, they can't find it. They're lazy. Some people are lazy. And then maybe you introduce a penalty. If they call you, you're going to charge them $10. Then they're going to do online. But that online experience has to be foundable. So in your holistic evaluation and your review of the site that you've chosen, the first thing you need to make sure is I can actually, as a user, find that thing that will allow me to make a purchase, find that option that will allow me to pay my bill, find that option that will allow me to look at the return policy. So findability, and then once you found it, then you just go through the experience, right? But if I can't find these options, then I just end up either calling you, and that will increase your cost support. So I spent 2 years at Rogers. All of what we were doing was this: usability testing, A/B testing, which is very different. I don't remember if it's in this class or a previous class, but don't confound usability with A/B testing, which is completely different. But A/B testing will give you some insight or maybe some reasons to actually do usability testing. And then they can work together. They're different, but all in the end will tell you what you need to do to improve those experiences. When do we do usability testing? We do them as early as possible. You do them if the product is not yet delivered, yet not launched. The earlier you will do, then the quicker you should be able to make some changes to your product. Now, if a product is live, yes, you should still do usability testing. And the chances are most of you are actually going to be doing testing for things that exist. 20 years ago, we were building. 20 years later, we're optimizing. We're making things better. But if you're building something new, if you're building a new app, if you're building a new product or new experience, you should do usability testing as early as possible. That could be with paper wireframes. You could have wireframes on paper. You could actually have wireframes just on a flat screen on the computer. And then you actually pretend that you're the computer and you click next, just like I do through my slides. So you would be amazed to see how much information you get. And you can also have a prototype, something that is clickable. You can have something that is not even clickable. But what you will do, because you're using thinking aloud, then you tell the customer and you explain them. Obviously, you would say, Mr. Customer, thank you for coming to our usability testing today. We're going to be testing some screens, some Rogers. We are actually working for Rogers. And we are actually designing a new web experience. But nothing is real. It's all black and white. But you will be telling me what you're trying to do and what you would do. And then when you say I'm going to click here, then I will show you the screen that would happen that you would see when you do click here. Now, obviously, in your planning, you would have planned to make sure that you have the screens that you want, that you need to go through your experiences. And obviously, there will be times where you're not going to have the screen, but you were not necessarily interested in that particular area of the website or the new wireframes that you have, okay? So building, before you build things, when things are built, it's a lot harder to undo. When things are developed and coded, it's very expensive. It's a lot harder to make changes. The machine is already gone, the train is already gone, and you're gonna meet resistance of making any changes. Because why? Because you and people don't like delays. The product manager will be very upset because he's being measured on being on time and quality. Mind you, you want to have the best experiences. So the earlier the better. Before you launch the product, if you can, and otherwise, one of the reasons why we want to do it early, one of the reasons we want to do usability testing, we don't want to go too far in development and then end up having to undo. We want to save money to the business too. So that is really your primary reason. And then a test can be of a short duration cycle. So we're going to learn and discuss more about this, but you can do relatively fast. You could come up with some usability testing. Again, the more experience you have, the better you will get at it. But a typical life cycle, I think, that I've seen for usability testing, for the moment that you thought that you would do a test. So from the moment that you think of, we're going to do a test, and then you go from the planning. If you think of from this moment, so we can say this is time 0 or time 0, yeah, time 0 to time 8 or 9, that's 7, whatever. Maybe you can think of, usually I think I've seen 4 to 6, wow, weeks. Let's take this guy here. 4 to 6 weeks on average that I have seen. From the moment that you think of planning to actually reporting on your results, you can think of probably 4 to 6 weeks. But the better you will get at it, the quicker you will be, and then the shorter the duration will be. But you can do some good testing. You can do and get some good insight. Now, I'm thinking 4 to 6 weeks is very formal. It's the more formal testing that we've been speaking of. And as we know, there's informal and formal. But if you've been working on a project and someone has and you've been very engaged in the project and you are at the wireframe stages, and then one of the designer has really a challenge, or the UX has a real challenge about maybe multiple a variation of a wireframe, or who's actually want to get some insight. You could do something very informal with people maybe in your company to begin with that don't know very much about the product. Very relatively fast. You could, in the afternoon, you could probably pick 1 or 2 people and bring them to your desk or go to their desk and then show them the wireframes, but give them tasks. So you would say, we're designing a new product. This is actually a new way of showing search results when someone does a vacation search. And maybe that's the only screen that you're actually trying to make some changes to. You give them a little bit of context, and then you actually tell them maybe you show them the vacation search. And then you see what they enter as, and you use a real site. So I know this maybe become complex, but I'm just showing you that you can also do a usability testing by using a live product and then eventually introduce your wireframe. So in this case, let's say that I'm redesigning the vacation search for Sunwing. So you could very well bring them to sunwing.ca and show them the vacation search where they would actually enter Toronto to Cancun, blah, blah, blah. And then they click on search. And then great, you know that they're actually, they're starting the flow from the flow that they would normally start. It helps them to understand the context. It helps them to understand the mindset. It helps them to put them into what is it that we're doing, that experience. So, and then you can say, what would you expect to see, or what would you expect to see when you go search, right? And then you stop there, and then you let them tell you, and then you make notes. Then you say, great. Then you would instruct them. I will show you now the search result, what you will see. So you show them then on paper, if you want, what is the new wireframe that the designer is designing, that he like to get some insight, some initial insight. Then you let them tell you what they would do next, as if they were in real life. I know it's weird, it sounds strange, but it will make a lot of sense as you become more comfortable to do that kind of testing. You will be amazed how much feedback you'll get. I've done that many times. So you pretty much went through, some step was skipped, but you had to think about, what am I trying to test? What do I need to test? Is there a participant that I can recruit? Yes, there is someone maybe in the business that knows nothing. Then you've shown, and they may or may not be qualified, but I will explain why that is important or not important. And then the product you want to be testing, you show them that one page, and then you ask them to do, and then you let them do, and then they think loud and they tell you. So you'll learn all of this in the protocol. Then you're gonna get a lot of insights, and then you're gonna go back in the designer and say, here's what I found. And I really think that you will say, I found this, and I think that what has happened is X. And then my recommendation would be to probably change this. But you would probably do 1, 2, or 3 little tests like this with some of your user, people internal, and then you will know with experience if it's actually, the likelihood that you would actually probably find this kind of findings with real people, if you were to do with real people. Then you go to designer, and then you share with him, and he actually makes more changes. Then you could actually do again the same thing with the same participants that you've done. All of this, you could do that over the course of 1, 2, or 3 days. Then the designer and yourself feel that you have a better wireframes or a better mock-up for that then that later on, you may actually do a formal testing with real customer. But at least what you bring to the formal testing things is the best experience. And then you'll get the real insight. You're going to get more insight from people that are customer, prospect customer, or existing customer that you've done through your profiling, that you recruited, that you will have gone through this process here. You will have recruited people that are relevant, representative of your test, and you will take them through the formal process. But you can do some iterative, pre-formal testing so that whatever you bring to the real testing is the best, what you guys think the best. And that's really important. As a UX designer, as a UX or as a user research designer, you should only bring to a usability testing what you think is the best experience, unless there are some really, really strong opinions or some doubts, and you need to do the usability testing to actually show people that the solution that they want to push is broken, but you just haven't been able to do it, and the test is the only way. Otherwise, whatever you bring to a participant, when you bring them to a formal process of usability testing, you should be testing, you should be showing to them what you think is the best experience. How do you know it? It's because your UX or your UX designer, they've been trained, they've done research. You've already all looked at everything that you think is actually broken. And you're really going for testing to really discover the unknown in what you don't do. You should not be using usability testing to necessarily show that you know that something is broken. You're defeating the purpose, and you're actually losing people's money too. You should always be putting forward what you think is really the best experience. So if you, the UX, the designer, everybody's really convinced or think that this is probably the best that we could do, then you go and let's find out what is not optimal that we all thought that was probably optimal. Yes, you're always going to have someone that maybe will think that there was a better way, but he just did not manage to convince the UX. But overall, you should really be convinced that what you bring to the general public in a testing is your best guess. Are there any questions about that piece or that specific element? Then where do we do usability testing? As I said, you could do usability testing anywhere, really. You don't need much. You need a participant and a computer. You need scenarios. You need goals. You need to give them real goals and real scenarios. Okay? If you're very advanced, you probably don't even need to have an observer. And you could probably be on your own with the participant and take notes, because you'll become a lot more familiar. You're not going to be thinking so much about all the stuff and what you're going to tell them, because you become so good. But at the beginning, you would probably have the observer with you to take notes, so you can focus on conducting and facilitating the session. But it will depend. So where you will do, it will depend. If you really want to be formal, which is the formal, we're going to hear formal usability testing, often you will see that done in a lab, in a one-way mirror. It's often the same lab that you will see in focus groups. And I would say everybody's pretty familiar, or you guys know exactly what I mean by a one-way lab, right? So there is technology set up, there are computers, things are being recorded. There's a mirror, and then behind the mirror, you have me, probably, you have you as a client, you have your developer, you have your designer, you have your expert, UX, everybody who wants to come. And then maybe sometimes you have the client, depending on where you work. On the other side of the room, you only have the participant. He's all by himself with the facilitator. But the note taker is behind the mirror in that formal setup. So in the room with the participant, there's only the facilitator and a computer or a mobile device. He knows that things are being recorded. He knows that there's our observers. You will tell them. You will learn what to tell them and what not to tell them, so that he knows that he's being tested. And while he's not being tested, that there are people that are actually watching. But you will need to tell them that they're not really interested about him, how he does, but it's more about finding out about how they can make the product better. That is the very formal way. It can be very intimidating for the participants. Now, I've gone from doing formal testing to doing more informal testing, or formal, not formal, being in the lab. As I've said, and I've done it at the office. I've done it to a computer with customer, and then, but the most important is the data. What are you going to find? The insights. How are you going to make sense of the data? How are you going to make sense of the data? And how are you going to report on the results? The formal, the lab, the one-way mirror is very fancy, flashy, but it's not going to make the study a better study. You are the person who's going to make it a better study. How, depending on how you can conduct the session, how you're going to make the participant comfortable, how you're going to use think aloud, which we're going to talk more about. But you don't need to have all the fancy thing to get good results and good insights. The beauty, though, is when you have a formal lab at the one-way mirror, often you use this as a eye opener for your designer, for your developer, maybe your clients. If you work for a web agency, you have clients. Too often, people think that they know their customer, they know their product, their website. They think their website is awesome. They think there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, they're doing the usability testing maybe to show that they've done a good job. And guess what? Big surprises come, and the little thing will surprise them, and they'll get very upset. Sometimes they want to go to the other side of the room and tell the participant they're stupid. Like, people will say that. There's no stupid reason. There's just bad design. It's an eye opener sometimes to show them how disconnected as UX, as designer, as product expert, as business that we are from our customer. We're so far remote. We're in our office making decisions, and we're designing website, and we think that what we see is how everybody sees the world. Guess what? We're seeing a piece of the world, and someone else is seeing another little piece of the world. And my world is different than your world. So usability testing is intended to actually see it through the eyes of the consumer, and really hear and really see and really listen to it. So formal lab may help you to get more buy-in, for maybe more budget to do more usability testing more often. The formal lab may help you to get in the practice of doing usability testing in all the design that you do. Okay, and then at the end, at some point, it will maybe show your client or your boss or your company that you actually know what you do, and that you've been trying to convince them to do for maybe a year has actually resonated with them. And then in fact, they will ask you to do more, and they will expect you to do more, and they will leave you alone. And this is where maybe not lab element. Then you start doing the testing in your office, in a space, in a room, with the computer, with the participant. And you record the session using Zoom, just like we do for class. You can go back, someone can actually view what happened in the session. I will tell you, very rarely do they. They're too busy. Your boss is too busy. Everybody's too busy. In fact, if they have time to do sessions, review your session and revert, they're not doing their job. So that's how I've used, and that's how I move from formal to informal. But when we say informal, I don't want you to think that it's random and you haven't thought, you haven't done any thinking, you haven't done any planning. You have done planning, you have some planning, and you have been serious and you've been thorough. And at the end of the day, you bring people, you bring customer. They have a busy schedule. Don't waste their time. Don't do testing for things you already know. Don't do testing for something that is irrelevant. So the formality comes more about, from my view, more about the lab and the fancy lab and giving lunch to everybody. That is expensive, and this is where your cost will go really, really high, right? So you can do testing anywhere if you want, but you just have to know why you're doing testing, and you need to you will become better and better on what to look for, and the quality of your approach, the sessions, how good you choose your scenarios, how relevant the scenarios are, the data, your review, your understanding of what happened in the session, your analysis and the reporting, and how you're going to tell your stakeholder what has happened is really what matters the most. The lab won't make it better. And you're not going to be able to hide very long behind the nice, pretty lab setup. People will judge you on what difference are you making with what you will find in the lab, what people will manage to actually be able to implement on your website, and the impact of your recommendations. So the testing is one piece, right? At the end, as we've said, we want to improve business results. So, and this started, we said the trigger, maybe you have a high cost, maybe your conversion is going down, maybe you're losing customer, right? And then you say, I'm doing my testing. Then you implement. Then you're going to say, we found 80 issues. And I tell you, I found 80 issues in the usability testing at one step in the buy flow, the payment step. The first usability testing I did at Erica on Vacations was going through the buy flow. At the payment page, 80 issues. There were like 80 very, very issues, from big, from large to medium, that we found with all the sessions that we did. We only did maybe not even 10 sessions. That's the last step. We've implemented, hopefully, all of them. The ones that we found that were very high, impactful. The payment step, if that's your last step, you probably want to implement as many things as you can, because there are some issues and it's the last. People are really willing to commit it. So we found issues. Then what happens? People will then look at you and they say, great, go ahead, implement them. Right? So now you have to implement. And then they'll be doing what? The next thing that they'll be doing is they'll be measuring. Right? You'll be measuring conversions. And then they'll say, great, conversion has improved. Great, we're getting less phone calls. Great, customer are staying. This is what they're going to measure you also at the end. So fancy, no fancy lab. They will not remember that. But this is what they will be looking at. Dollar up, or they will be looking at costs, right? Down. This is what they will say. Yves did a good job with the usability testing. It doesn't matter the lab. They will not remember the lab. Actually, but some people will remember the good food. What do we test? But before I do that, any questions about where, how, why, and how or to to business.com and the user.com? Obviously, the user will be happier too. Okay, what do we test? We are just really interested in one thing. Can the participant in that session accomplish their main task, the main task that you're giving them using the product? That's all. You just want to see if they're able to actually do on their own. Do on their own the things that you know brings the most business. The thing that you know that will reduce cost to your business. The things that you know that will retain the customer. That is all. So you're making choices. So your assignment is all about making choices of where do we think that our site or our mobile app or desktop is actually broken. Broken to the point that we're actually losing money. Losing money because we don't have the sales that we should, or we're losing money because we have people calling us. That's all of what you're testing. And then I'm just going to increase. I just learned how to use the Zoom function today. So you're really telling the customer, and you're telling them the things that they would probably understand and matters to them. So this little plan dashboard is all on one page. It's pretty much telling you on one page what it is that you need, the 7th step. That is a bit the idea. So you can use this if you want. Find out more about the scheme and decide if you would sign up for it. Sign up for the service. Review the order. Review your order. And you want to change. You want to change when the grocery is being delivered. So that's maybe a goal. And I told you, I give you, or I said, think about wanting to make a change to something existing, wanting to return an item if that is what your website will allow. All the things that you know that people are calling you are the things that you know that is actually having a negative impact on your business. You're really just testing these things. So you need to be clear on the user goal. You need to be clear on why are people coming and the different type of user. When I say the different type of user, it can be the new prospect, it can be someone who's existing, and then what possibly they may want to come. And also think about, they're not going to be all linear. They will come to you and they're going to leave, they're going to come back and maybe finish their purchase. And then you're going to have people that have very, very specific information needs. They know exactly, let's say, which vacation they want to go to, which hotel. Now you may have a customer who does not know where he wants to go. So we're going to find, maybe in your profiling, you're going to need to bring people that know where they want to go on vacation. Let's say that you are doing Air Canada vacation. You want to test Air Canada vacation by flow because you're just saying that conversion is bad. Then you would say, well, I'm probably going to bring customers that have never traveled with me. Maybe you're going to bring customers that have traveled with me. Maybe you're going to bring customers that actually have a vacation. Then you're going to make choices. So this is how you're going to also define, knowing what you're going to be testing on the user goal will tell you, an indication that will tell you who do you need to bring. Sometimes it's obvious, right? So, and then you have to think back about their information needs of, they know exactly vacation, or maybe they don't know where to go. Maybe they're more about inspiration. Or maybe you have a customer that knows exactly which hotel, even. And maybe you're going to say, I want to see both. I want to see both of those customers in my testing environment. It will be very powerful, but you'll see how one thing is connected. So very important to spend good time to really think about this assignment number 1, because it will be the input to everything else that we're going to do in this semester. But I hope you pick the site that you actually really want to work with for 13 weeks, because you will know it but inside out. Are there any questions before we actually look at Think Aloud technique or demo? So, well, the Think Aloud technique or demo is actually in the lab, and the link is in the lab on Blackboard. And the lab is the next hour. So we're done with pretty much this hour number 2. So now we're going to be moving to hour number 3, which is our lab. So, and then you'll be able to look at the demo on your own as well. So if I go back to the beginning of the deck. So we just went through hour number 2. We are now going into hour number 3 until 3:15. You can take a break. You can decide to leave. You can do anything. But my recommendation is to use that time, because it's blocked probably in your calendar, to do your lab. And the lab this week is look at the demo about Think Aloud. It's a minute demo. They actually really show you how to do Think Aloud. Then work on your assignment. The lab for this week is working on your assignment number 1 with your team. But there's a piece which is individual as well. I have put it, let me just share Blackboard. While we're here, I may give you a bit more insights, but I have, and I also put the note on, that's not what I wanted to do, but let's see. Application. Okay. So I've added a little bit more details about the heuristic evaluation, which is the assignment number 1 that you have to do. So I've got the question from 1 or 2 students, and then I send the email, and I thought everybody would benefit from these little extra insider details about the assignment. The ultimate goal of the assignment is to really have a clear sense of who are the users, what will be the goals, the test scenarios of the goals, like the user goals that you actually really want to go deep in, that you want to test with the participants that we're eventually going to bring. And you want to understand why. I want to understand why those goals. So, and also you want to have a sense of what are the sequence or the steps that a user would actually go to accomplish those goals. And again, there's a reading about goals versus activities or versus task analysis. So the goal would be, I want to buy a new vacation. Then there's certain steps that people will follow, right? Then how is the website delivering on those steps? So that we are going to take that, and that is what we're going to go and test in the usability testing. So you have to know, who are the user? Is it new? Is it existing? Is there something in the new user that you actually may want to think about too? Someone who has a vacation, someone who knows exactly where to go, someone who doesn't know where to go, right? So that is the kind of what we see user and user type. Now you're obviously going to have people that are maybe existing customer of your product as well. So what are the things they want to do? Then I ask you to explore the steps so that you have a sense of, great, once that we found that goal and I go through the goals, is the sequence logic, is the sequence, is the what we're showing them and what we're asking them, are they going to be able to even answer? Are they going to be able to accomplish that goal? So you need to know that. You have to be clear. So, but you also start with, where is that goal? When I come to the website, where do I find my book a vacation? Where do I find my pay a bill? Where do I find sign up as well? If that is a goal that you felt that were deemed to be tested. And yes, you can talk about the positive element about your evaluation if you want. But knowing the positive, then you will tell me, well, these are positive and we don't believe that we necessarily should be spending a lot of time on these items because they're not necessarily problematic. And here's why. But we found the following that we think that we need to explore. Now, how long should be the report or not? Not a page, definitely not a page. Now, someone said, hey, I'm down to like 7 pages. Make it long. It has to be long enough in a sense that we need to be able to feel that we have answers to these questions. So I say, given the size, it's probably going to be between 5 and 10 pages. If you put screenshots, and that's going to make it a bit longer too, right? But I want you to use your common sense. But a page is way too short. And I think you're probably going to be close to maybe 5 pages if you are answering all the questions and all the things that I said in the PDF. So I want the report at the end should be able to answer the questions. Who will be the users that will come? Prospect, new, existing. You probably need to build more insight about that. That will only help you when it's time to do the recruiting and the profiling for your user. Then what will be the user goals? So we need to have details about the user goals. What is it and why? Also, you pick those user goals. Why you selected them, and why do you think that they're important to the business? Usually it's about sales, costs, retain customer, and what you think some of the problems that you've encountered. So this is what you're going to say. I really think based on the heuristic, we have the following problem. I think based on what I know about user is a problem. I think that based on what I've seen on maybe other sites that I believe they do better, that this will cause issues as well. You don't have data, you don't have access to the data of that website unless you work for the business. But if you work for the site and you have data, that will be even better. But I don't expect that. And then which main area or section or experiences or flow you're going to be testing. The chances are we've already answered that question through the other questions as well. If you say one goal is buy a vacation, then I'm going to get a sense that there's somewhere where I can buy a vacation, right? If you say pay your bill online, we think that paying bill online is a problem, then I already have a sense that there'll be a flow or an experience. But we just want to be clear. Who is the user? Who's the audience? What are the main goals? Why you've picked those goals as well? And then if you provide that with me, and I feel that we know exactly where we're going to be focusing on for our the tests and everything else that we're going to do in this class, then and with the quality and the quality and everything else that I've mentioned in the PDF, you'll be good. But it's really about knowing where you will be focusing your effort is really what I'm mostly interested in. Cool. So for this hour and forward, until the rest of the day, you guys are to be on your lab, work on your lab items. I'll be around. I'm not going to be recording at this point, but I'll be around. If you guys have any questions, you want to poke me, you can do here. You can do the chat. I'll be here. I'll be available. And then if we don't talk, then I wish you a good rest of the day, and we'll see you next week. And please reach out to me if you have any questions. The assignment is due Feb. Let's see. This heuristic evaluation, everything that I just described, has to be handed by Thursday, February 4th. So next Thursday, before midnight. If you do it earlier, even better. It's 15 points. And that will be the basis for everything else for this semester. So I'm sure you'll do well. And I'm around. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. And thank you for those of you that have chosen to come to the session. So I will stop the recording, but I will keep Collaborate open. And you guys are welcome to ask me questions here if you want.